Hello there. Well, Air Sports GA Gold coverage continues, and this week it is all about Kerry versus Mayo in the All-Ireland semi-final from 2014. And who better to look back on that match, those two matches, I should say, the first match in Croke Park and, of course, the replay down in Limerick in the Gaelic Grounds, and two Kerry icons, Marc and Bryan Sheehan. Gentlemen, thank you both very much for taking the time to chat to us here at Air Sport. Before we get into the watch-along itself, before we look back at some key moments, some standout moments of both matches, take us back to 2014, Marc. Like, what was the Kerry-Mayo rivalry? What was the feeling, the general feeling, I suppose, of Kerry football at the time?
Well, it was a difficult time in Kerry because we hadn't won an All-Ireland since 2009. We lost a lot of players in 2009. Ty Kennelly went back to Australia. We lost Tommy Walsh. A few more fellas retired. Diarmuid Murphy, Dara, my brother. And, you know, went to a position where in 2011 we had a few new players coming in and possibly should have won the All-Ireland, where we were 65, 66 minutes in command against Dublin. And lost that as well, so that was very disappointing. And you know, it was 5 years before we had won anything. And 2014, then 2013, there was that great game at Dublin where it was, you know, it was a game of the ages where you know, it was to and fro. They likened it to the 77 semi-final, Kerry and Dublin. But I think that we knew we were close. We knew we had a team emerging again, even though, albeit there was some of us pushing on, coming towards the end. But I think that in itself is a good situation where you have seasoned campaigners and you have young lads coming in. And I think that 2013 certainly gave us, you know, we pushed on in 2014. We had a new manager in 2013, Éamonn, and it was our second season in. So, you know, with that, nobody was giving us a chance in 2014. We played Cork in the Munster final below in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. We were ranked outsiders. They didn't give us a chance to win it. Cork had beaten us heavily in the league that year in Tralee. And so we weren't given a chance. And when we went down to Cork, we gave a performance. And all of a sudden, again, we're contenders for the All-Ireland. And I think the one abiding memory of 2014 for me was that we had that bit of luck along the way, which I think a team needs to win an All-Ireland. And we had those small little bits of luck, be it Cillian O'Shea or Cillian O'Connor and Aidan O'Shea, having that hitting off each other, colliding with each other, and even the final, the goalkeeper making a mistake and Kieran Donaghy kicking a goal. So we had small little, I suppose, bits, the rub of the green along the way, that I think every team, when you look back in hindsight and you see teams winning the All-Ireland, I think most teams will say they had that rub of the green. So it just fell for us that year as well. Now, obviously, you know, we had a very good side and some great players, and you know, but those, you know, the games at Mayo were outstanding, really.
I suppose going into the match itself, then specifically, Bryan, what did you expect from that Mayo side?
I suppose we had great battles with this Mayo team down throughout the years. You know, if you go back down even to the 2011 All-Ireland semi-final, I think was this kind of new team that Mayo had brought since the mid-noughties. And you know, they were after having a couple of finals with Dublin as well, and we just knew it was going to be, you know, a right test for us, because, as Marc mentioned, we just had a bad kind of league campaign in 2014, got a roasty of Cork in the league, and we just kind of exploded out and over in the Munster final against Cork and won it. And I think that set us up nicely, coming under the radar, no pressure on us. And I just think it just allowed us really to have a right go at Mayo. And look, as you say, we knew what Mayo were about. We knew that they were knocking around the last couple of years, you know, great games against Dublin in the All-Ireland finals and replays. And it was just a massive test for us. And I firmly believe that, you know, competing in the first game in Croke Park, it really set us for the replay as well. That we just had a belief that these were beatable, that this team was now capable of contesting an All-Ireland and winning an All-Ireland. And you know, I think you go into the replay in Gaelic Grounds, and another fantastic game. And I know I thought we were fantastic again that night. And it just really set us up with the belief of a new young team with fellas that probably hadn't won All-Irelands, that probably hadn't played many minutes in the Kerry jersey, hadn't played in Croke Park many times. I just think those two games really just set us on a platform and it gave us a right belief that we were, in contention of winning the All-Ireland.
Certainly. Well, I suppose let's get stuck in, lads. As I say, some massive moments in that first match. It was such a high energy game as well in Croke Park. So I suppose we can get to the watch along now. So as you were saying, going into the semi-final, I suppose before you left the dressing room, when you're emerging onto the pitch, Mark, what were the last words that Éamonn Fitzmaurice said to you?
I can't remember really. I didn't listen to him too much.
Was he a man though for trying to G us up, or was that just come natural?
He was very good that way. He was a great man to G us up, and he was. I suppose at the time, Jack was there a few years, and we probably needed, even though Jack was outstanding, we needed something fresh. And Éamonn came in with Cian O'Neill, and we knew all about Mayo, as Bryan said in 2011. Great score there by Stephen O'Brien, who I mentioned there about the young players coming through, and here was an emerging talent.
That's the energy, Mark. I suppose that's why I did ask about kind of being cheated up, because getting that momentum, getting the first score, and getting the perfect platform to go on and continue, because it was a bit of a dull day next couple of minutes, a few points were exchanged, but to get the first score of the match by Stephen O'Brien, who I suppose would like great step, great footwork as well. Was Stephen O'Brien an underrated player?
Well, he's still going. I don't think he's underrated. He's certainly not underrated in Kerry. He might be underrated in the rest of the country. But all of a sudden there now we've seen three players. James, who was around there in 2013. We saw Mikey Gainey, and we saw who else was there? There was three new players involved. So they were all those guys were they really upraised the bar for Kerry in training, and what that did for the rest of us, then it brought us all on as players, and certainly the likes, as I said, Stephen O'Brien, James O'Donoghue, Mikey Gainey. All of a sudden, you had new players coming into this setup, and the opening exchanges in that game, just to and fro. You see Killian there, who was my God, he was on fire that year, and big, strong man. I'd actually liken him to the likes of Johnny Crowley, who, he was just so strong. It was very hard to get around him, and he probably should have put this one in the back of the net. Really,
I think a bit of miscommunication there. Were you involved in that one, Mark, I believe?
I was. I was coming in. There was a high ball in, and I could hear Enright behind me, and he was coming for it. So I was with Freeman, who was a big, tall, scopy man as well, and Shane. Yeah, it was just. Do you know what? Killian will look back in that one. I'd say he'll be very disappointed, with being honest.
Yeah, especially
they're the kind of things, Mark, that you speak about.
Brian Kelly slipped at the vital stage, really.
They're the kind of things, Mark, you speak about, that bit of luck you had. I mean, to win All-Ireland, things like that. He slipped us as he was going to kick it.
Yeah.
They're the kind of things, as you mentioned that. And I totally agree with you. We had an awful lot of luck, I think, in that year. And, sometimes you make your own luck, but, incidents like that, you can send yourself definitely, Robert the Green there, it goes your way when you're winning an All-Ireland.
A bit of bad luck though. Stephen O'Brien comes off on 20 minutes. Was it expected that he wouldn't last even the half, considering he was going into it with a few injuries, Brian?
Yeah, I think he knew it. He was he knew a bit of bother. I was actually on the treatment table myself as well. In the actual Galway game, I think it was only 5 minutes into the Galway game, the quarter final, I tore my hip flexor in 3 places. So I was lucky to see any part of the championship chance in the outstanding 3 games, 2 Mayo games in the final. But Stephen also tore his hamstring, I think, coming into the semi-final as well. So we kind of had an understanding that he wasn't going to last the full game, and in fairness, the bit of contribution he had, he scored a point and set up a score, which was massive, So
yeah. Well, speaking of massive moments, this was a big turning point. Lee Keegan with the kick out after the David Moran point, and then Lee Keegan himself kicks out. Is this a red card, Mark? It's dangerous play in terms of he does lash out, but I mean, it's a tip more than a kick. We'll see it again in the replay here. Was it a bit harsh?
It was very harsh. He doesn't make contact. Okay, the intent is there. He doesn't make contact. He lashes out. I suppose technically you're looking at it and you're saying it's a red card, but he is putting himself out there to be given a red card with what he does, but. Is there a red card in that? I don't think so. I was always told, if you're going to do something, make sure you get value out of it if you're going to get a red card. But, I don't think there's a red card in that. No.
Yeah,
Does he
but
catch Johnny Buckley? To be fair, I don't think he does. I think it was a huge. No, do you know what? What it actually did, it inspired Mayo. Believe it or not, we were 2 or 3 points up at that stage, and it helped Mayo. I think it brought him back into the game, which it so often does. Sometimes with in situations like that, when there is a player down, we saw it. Cork Meath in the 1990 where Colm O'Neill got sent off against Meath in the All Ireland final, and it inspired Cork to go on and win the All Ireland. But no, I don't think it merited a red card, to be honest, Shane.
Was the challenge then managing, I suppose, fighting against complacency? Because we see Fionn Fitzgerald's point there. It came from just, keeping possession of the ball. Now, this is at the start of the second half where, as you were saying, Mayo were inspired and they created a goal chance. Again, Mark, I think you lose out in the air and Brian Kelly in goal saves your blushes. But, was the challenge then, because how strong Mayo came out at the start of the second half in that third quarter, were you worried at all that you would be complacent, considering you had a 4 or 5 point lead built up and you had the extra man, Brian?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you're never going to dominate a game of football for 70 minutes. And, as Mark said there, like, it's funny that when a team goes down to 14 men, you just seem to find an extra gear in you. You always seem to find a way that you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to make up that extra man. And every fella seems to up his game an extra bit. And I mean, we always knew Mayo, the quality they had, that they weren't just going to sit back and let it happen. It's an All-Ireland semi-final. You have to go for broke, And I think for us, really, we weren't going to sit back and let them come on to us. But I suppose, what happens towards the end of the game is that they just got a run on us and a bit of momentum. And, I think that's where experience kind of tells, when you're experienced, you can try and take the sting out of the game a small bit, slow the game down. And I think that comes from experience. And, if that team, again, we probably learned from it down the line, you just need to take the sting out of the game a small bit more with a team at 14 men, get a run on you. And that's what's about learning. But look, we knew they were going to be coming at us. Look, you see Éamonn Fitzmaurice, like, I mean, that inspires teams that when you see their big game player take you on, half the Kerry team, and then you've like to come by here kicking a fantastic score. So that's what lifts teams, and that no matter how many men you've on the field, it's that kind of inspiration that gets the team back into the game. And I think for us, it was at this time it was just about getting a score on the board. I don't know how many points Mayo got on the trot here, and you just need to be able to try and just kill the game a small bit, and that's experience. As I said, look, it's a new team on the block here, and I'm pretty sure fellas learned that as the years went on.
I suppose in hindsight, Mark, is it frustrating looking back on it now that you weren't able to kind of stop them? We've seen so many turnovers, so many 50-50s won by Mayo, and as Brian was saying, just big players driving at you. That is tough to stop in the first place before you can even get any foundation to go on and create attacks yourself.
It is, yeah. And what I noticed about that second half in particular, they were carrying the ball out the field and they were creating huge gaps of space in our defence. And you had Mayo players who were, when they got to their 45, they were able to look up and put ball in, or else, as you see there, kick good scores from 35-40 yards. And they had the players that could do that. Cillian O'Connor, we saw Colm Boyle, Alan Dillon, who was a phenomenal player for Mayo, like myself coming at the end that time, but I mean still a great player. And you had those players that had the ability, and all of a sudden you're 46 minutes into the game, it's a draw game. We knew it was game on now for the next 25-30 minutes, and when you see the likes of Andy Moore,
and you have this man coming on as well.
yeah, and what a player he was. And you talk about, was Stephen O'Brien an underrated player? I think Andy Moore, before he got player of the year, he was certainly an underrated player, because Marc and him, he was the most honest player you'd ever come across in terms of the running he would do off the ball. We look at this guy here, James O'Donoghue. Why was he so good that year? Because what a duel those two had over the course of 2 games. But what the running that he had off the ball was just incredible, and a nightmare for defenders. And I'm talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 runs, and the ball still wouldn't have come. And all of a sudden, maybe in the 5th or the 6th run, he'd win the ball. Phenomenal player, Andy Moore.
Yeah, you had a few stars on the bench as well, Brian, as we can see from Mr. Donaghy there.
Yeah, we had, look, we all know the outcome he had on it, like, and just massive. And James here, like, game, different story. If that goes in with James, I think that's a different killer blow to Mayo down to 14 men. That could have been a game-changing moment for the game. But look, we knew.
You're happy alongside him, Bryan.
No, this is my lesson learned anyway. Kill the ball, because I hit a shot there and I didn't kill it, and we see what happens at the end of this. But look, I suppose you see there Mayo bring on the Vandy Moore. We brought on Declan there. Declan was in trouble that year with his knees, and we were able to bring him in. I managed to see a bit of game time coming in, and then you've Kieran coming in as well. We both teams had big players that time, and as I suppose I just said there, that's the difference with you not killing the ball and one into the field, and that's a good Mayor. They can only field there in the space of 30 seconds penalty.
It's funny because Robbie Henley came under fire from, I suppose, decision making, possibly not making the right decisions, and he spilled a few high balls. But that started from his punch. A proper decision making from a goalkeeper. May work the ball up, and then, as you say, it ends in a penalty. So again, I suppose that must be frustrating from a Kerry perspective. And Marc, as a defender, is that a tackle you have to make? You just have, by all means possible, he has to be hit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Peter will be too happy with that one, because you had Andy Moore was to his right, and but I think defensively we were kind of solid at the time. We had a good few players back. And,
you were heading towards the goal line, Marc, and Brian Kelly's behind you. I mean, I was saying there, obviously put pressure on him and would leave him shoot. He'd have to be two people in the goal line to score a goal, whereas. Yeah,
and as well, like Bryan, if you had the likes of Cillian O'Connor there, if you had a different player, then maybe you'd be taking them down,
Yes, I agree to with Donaghy, exactly, yeah. So great penalty.
Yeah. What's the mindset now? So 59 minutes, coming up to 59 minutes, you're 3 points down now. You have the man extra. Mayo did have the better third quarter, but what is the mindset at this moment in time, Bryan?
Get your hands on the ball. Next kick out is the big one. You're after conceding the goal there, and the big thing is to take the momentum away from them again. And it's easier said than done, because when your tail's up in the game, it's so hard to get the ball back, and everyone's coming at you 100 miles an hour. Everyone's lifted, and you see even Andy there now, or Cillian, give it to Fionn Fitzgerald. That just lifts teams, and especially when you've got a big key player like of Cillian kicking scores, that lifts Mayo. But I suppose what you want there is just ball in hand. You just want to get a ball in hand, get up the field, get it free, just get the scoreboard ticking over again on your side, kill the momentum, and that's the big one really. I suppose that's what we're trying to do there. But again, look, easier said than done. They just seem to have that bit of momentum going with them, and you just have to try and kill it, get a score, and that's it. But it's easier said than done.
Certainly, a team of that quality.
They're coming in waves. Their tails are up, and it's so hard to stop a team when they have momentum. Even go back to 2011, All-Ireland final, we were comfortable. All of a sudden, they just get a goal and Croke Park starts shaking. All of a sudden, the Dublin tails are up, and it's just, for me, it's just about breaking momentum, and it's just trying to get your hands on the ball, and it's just hard to do it. But I think Kieran gets a free here. I get a handy free here, and it's just something that kind of gets us back into the game a small bit.
Yeah, because everything is going with them, Bryan. Even the Hawkeye calls, even a matter of inches, that everything seems to go in 116 to 14. But then the big man makes a great catch, and that's what you say. It's those key moments that I suppose you needed, them to happen.
That's it. Look, that's where you need a leader like Kieran to stand up and to win a ball like that. And you get a score on the board, just kills the momentum off Mayo. And when you're facing their kick out now again. Just they're the small things that just keeping the scoreboard ticking over. I think is a big thing when your back is to the wall, and just again fantastic catch. That's what Kieran is notorious for doing, and he's just so good at it, and his hands, but his vision, look at this. For me, it's the speed of his hands here just to get it and know where James is, and it's gone. That's the different thing with Kieran. People don't realise how good Kieran was with his vision. Kieran could see you coming, and he'll fake to go one way, and all of a sudden his hands will go the opposite way, and he'll just flick a ball to you. And for me, it's the speed of which he gets this off to James, with the right pace on the pass. It's not laboured. It just means James just has to pull the trigger on it, and it's just even just to know where James is. How many fellas there would get that ball and try to turn themselves? He just knew where James was. Fantastic.
Yeah, and with only 3 minutes left as well, such crucial timing, I suppose, and then that sets a platform. Marc, I have to ask, did you get nosebleeds here up at the opposing team's end line?
I did, yeah, because like winning the ball was one thing, but then trying to hold the ball from not going over the end line and putting on the brakes
And you
was
got the assist. You got the assist for the equalising score.
half of an assist, really. But it was Kieran O'Leary showed, ice in his veins there. The way he was able to put the ball over the bar under such pressure. 72 minutes gone, like, and straight over the bar. What a score! Like,
Great score, yeah.
I mean, to come from 4 or 5 points down and to get back into the game like that. And like, I suppose putting Kieran in full forward was key. You saw that Bryan spoke about the a player like him, the way he's able to, and look at him there still fighting, like he was the basketballing ability, I suppose, helped him. James, so unlucky there. Like, I mean, we actually had chances to win that game. And when you consider where we came from, Mayo probably dropped the heads a small bit, particularly after the goal, because they had all the momentum, and now all of a sudden we had all the momentum, particularly at the right time of the game. So we certainly had 2 chances. James's chance, and obviously we'll talk about Bryan's towards the end, which was a huge kick so far out, like it was massive altogether. What a catch by Barry John, like, for such a small fella.
I know, yeah.
Massive fetching, massive.
That's such a, that's what you want. You want leaders. You want those men to stand up and be accounted for.
Yeah, he had a big influence that year. That lad Barry John had a huge influence that year coming off the bench. He was excellent now, I have to say.
And Bryan, you're stepping up to this. So talk us through this one.
Well, transfer, there's no pressure on it because the game is level. It's different if you were a point down and you knew that you kind of had to kick it. So it was a kick for nothing really. But look, what caught me at the end of the day was distance. I suppose making excuses. I had a torn hip flexor as well in 3 places that you can see with the strapping on my leg there. But
were you confident? Confident stepping up to it?
I was, because I didn't play a full game. I was fresh. I hadn't a full 70 minutes into my belt. I was only after coming on. I think after about 40-45 minutes. I think I came on and. Yeah, I was confident. That's why I'm there for the kick it. In fairness, I actually recall at the time I struck it on the button. I was very happy with it, but look, it was just the distance wasn't there, the legs weren't there, and that was it. But you know what? In the long run, I think the replay actually stood us. I don't know if we would have won the final if we hadn't gone to replay. I think we found out so much more about ourselves in the replay. So in hindsight, it might have been no harm that I did miss it.
It's interesting that you say that, I suppose, Brian. What did you learn about yourself from that? And like, what could you take before we get to the final? But even what learnings from that match could you take into the replay?
I suppose number one is to say, look, we kind of came into this game as underdogs, being written off, coming into the Munster final that we're going to get hammered by Cork, and all of a sudden just building and building. You get this young team, as Marc mentioned, like Stephen O'Brien, Mikey Gainey, fellas that probably hadn't seen much game time with Kerry before, hadn't gone to Croke Park, played in All-Ireland semi-finals and stuff. And even just get that under your belt, and then to get that kind of a quality game with that pressure in that situation, backs to the wall, you're ahead, you go behind and you fight back and you equalise. That just gives you fierce belief that you can actually compete at this level and that you can actually, okay, we're good enough now to go back toe-to-toe to Mayo. And I think for us, that's what it was, and just the belief and never say die attitude. I think that's the one thing I took from that game in particular was, your backs up to the wall, you're 70-something minutes, are up. I think there was maybe 3 or 4 minutes left. And yet now we're still going. We get the equaliser and then we get 2 more chances again after that to win it. I just think, the belief I think that gave us was just fantastic from that. We just had this attitude that we were not going to be beaten. And for me, I think that was the massive thing to take into the replay when into the Gaelic Grounds.
Talk me through the week then, Marc, from the match in Croke Park to Limerick, because I suppose I have to ask the question, you lost your place in the team. That must have been a disappointing blow to you personally.
Yeah, I remember I got a phone call from Éamonn just to say that I was dropped, and I was shocked, to be honest, because I disagreed with the decision, and he felt I wasn't going as well as I should be, and I kind of felt there was a lot of fellas who weren't going as well as they should be, and I kind of disagreed with him, to be honest. But look, I respected his decision at the end of the day because he was the manager, and we just got on with it, and it was about the replay, and so for me it was the first time ever that I was dropped since maybe my first year where I was dropped against Roscommon, I think, and so it was a completely different viewpoint from my point of view. But as I say, ultimately it was a team that we had to think about and get my head around it first of all, and then take it from there and make sure that the team did well and that we drove on and kind of. And again, the second thing was the replay. Croke Park wasn't available. I think was it a concert or was there a game on or something, but it wasn't available. And it was the first time that there was an All-Ireland semi-final played outside of Croke Park since Páirc Uí Chaoimh in 1983. So, that was another thing. But we were well used to playing in Gaelic Grounds. We knew the grounds well. It was only an hour up the road from us. So we were really looking forward, relishing that game. So it was something that we were really, as I say, players knew that after coming back from being 4 or 5 points down, that we knew we had it in us to win this game. So it was something that we were really looking forward to.
Does preparation differ in any way, Bryan? I suppose, as Marc said there, Gaelic Grounds only an hour down the road. Does that suit you? I suppose, is that more beneficial to you as a team, a closer ground, or does it matter where the match is played once you step out into the pitch?
I suppose I had a small. I suppose we played a lot more games in probably the Gaelic Grounds over the years than probably what Mayo had. So I suppose that did help to us to a certain degree. But look, once you're out in the field, it's same field, same dimension, same post. But look, I suppose the big thing I found was that the fact we were playing the Gaelic Grounds was that it was a smaller venue and you had 45,000 people inside there. The atmosphere inside there was absolutely unbelievable. It was electric and the place was hopping from the start right to the finish. And I think that had a massive bearing on the game because players feed off that. Croke Park half empty, you can nearly hear the players talking at times, and it's kind of eerie around the place. But going back to the Gaelic Grounds there, 45,000, the place was hopping. It was amazing. But going back to the question about the build up was just about recovery. It was only, I think it was a Saturday evening game. It was only a 6-day turnaround. All you're doing there is just getting bodies right. Just I'd say we probably only met once that week. I'd say maybe twice, maybe just once for a cool down and kind of get just to assess the bodies. And the second one then was probably just, again, very light kicking, just to get a walk through, probably go through video stuff, learn from the week before, and that was it, But we probably had a small bit of an advantage, the fact that we knew the place. As you say, Marc said it's only an hour up the road. It's fine for Marc and Tralee and down in South Kerry, so it's 2 hours. So it's still a day out for us. But
you were in Tralee at the time, Bryan.
I wasn't. I was back home. Look, it was just nice, as you say. We travelled on the day. You're not having to go Saturday evening beforehand and spend time in the hotel and things like that. It was a nice feel to it. And I think after that, I think a lot of fellas probably got a bra for that. The fact maybe like these semi-finals, if you're not going to fill Croke Park, I think you get a fantastic atmosphere out of games in Limerick or in other venues, Thurles, Páirc Uí Chaoimh, Killarney. I think it's something that the GA could really look at down the line. Just for the point of view of the atmospheres, I think even maybe not this year, obviously with the situation we're in at the moment, but maybe next year, when they're doing these Super 8s, that rather than bringing these teams to Croke Park, where I recall the Kerry Galway game there 2 years ago, you could actually hear the keeper calling the backs and this kind of stuff, and it was just wrong. Whereas I think games like that played in smaller venues, bigger crowd, bigger atmosphere, the players love it. The players will actually feed off the atmosphere inside the ground.
Certainly, and I remember back watching it myself in 2014, and no disrespect, Bryan, but I was delighted you missed the kick purely so we could go again. So I had another match to watch. It was that entertaining, I suppose. But listen, gents, we set the scene perfectly, so we may as well get stuck into a couple of the key moments. So, we talk about momentum and Stephen O'Brien getting the first score of the match in the Croke Park match in the first game. But Bryan, how crucial is that first score to set the tone of the match? We talk so much about momentum in Croke Park, to step up and hopefully then see out how the match will pan out. And on this occasion, it was indeed Mayo who got the first score. So, already you're on the back foot.
Yeah, look, we always kind of say, it's great to win the throw-in and go around the field and set the tempo and get the first score on the board. And definitely if you do get the first score, it does settle the nerves, it settles the team down, and it does help. But am
I overplaying it? does it matter that much, really?
Some people do. I mean, we've had managers before where they put such an emphasis on winning the throw-in, just to say you got possession and you're putting the team in the back foot straight away, but you can go around the field and kick it wide or drop it short and it's back up the field again. Look, once the game's in play, it's an open play, but the big thing for me is to try and settle early. You know, if you do get a score, it does set the team early, and it does help. But I don't think it's the be all and end all for me. Look, other people might have a different perspective of it, but you know, there's another 6 to 9 minutes to go there before you know to get your scores and get a chance on it. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But you know, it's a different story if you're going on the field and you know, all of a sudden you're 4 or 5 points down. That's a different kettle of fish. You know, you don't want that to happen. You know, so I don't think the first score is vital, but definitely the first 10, 15 minutes. If you could definitely lose a game in that space of time. So it's important that you do try and settle as quick as you can.
You know, we talk about momentum and big moments at the start of the match, but it does peter out now. We're getting up to the 17th minute, and a big moment in this game is the penalty. But the build up to this penalty, Mark, I suppose it's a ball in. And my question, so it's an easy question for you: how do you shackle Cillian O'Connor?
Do you know how throughout my career, there's been different players at different times who've been so hard to shackle. You look at the likes of Alan Brogan in Dublin 06, his brother Bernard after. That year, I mentioned it already, he was near unmarkable. Now, it didn't help Shane that he wasn't even looking at the ball because, again, Mayo were able to create a situation with so much space. And he has so much strength, Cillian O'Connor. He's big, broad shoulders, big hips. He's a great tackler. The amount of times he dispossessed us when we were coming out of defence with the ball. So it's a near impossible job to mark him. You know, if you were to concede maybe two or 3 points on a given day, it's nearly a job well done. But that was an early blow for us, and we were playing catch up straight away. I think we went 7-1 down or 8-1 down. You know, and again, we had all the momentum at that stage.
And again, it's just those big balls in, big moments, and then another goal. So you're 20 minutes in, Bryan, semi-final replay, you're 2-2 to 2 points down. Like, what would you want the leaders on the pitch to be saying? You know, the leaders of this Kerry side to be saying at this moment in time?
Give me the ball. That's the one thing you want to just give me the ball. You know, that's what it is. That's where leaders are. That's where you get likes of, you know, Declan and these fellas, James, you know, demand the ball. They want the ball, and because they're the fellas that make things happen, you know. And look, I think, you know, we know from this, they do stand up. Kieran stands up and catches the game with the scruff of the neck for us, you know. James steps up, comes into the game as well, and really kick scores for us, and that's what you want. And look, I suppose going back to the week before, we'd found ourselves in this situation as well, and you know, like things like that, winning frees like that, winning ball, that gets the scoreboard ticking. You know, even that just cheer on the crowd, you know, that lifts things when you see big game players or big players doing things like that. It just lifts you, like, and like that's massive. It's a score on the board again straight away. You know, we're getting the ball early again, and that's massive. But so that's the big thing for me is that the big players stand up, you know, and no better than Kieran doing, and it just lifts everyone else around the team as well when they do that.
But even to win that ball that he did, his hand was held back. You know, James again probably should have slipped that one to Kieran. I actually was golfing with Kieran lately, and he said it to me like I said the half volley, and he said James should have slipped it. He said, but it was a great goal. He was at the right place at the right time. But Bryan is right. He was incredible there for that game. But again, you know, Higgins did everything right there. He took on James, or James was taking him on. He took him on the other side. He got a half block, you know, and unfortunately Cafferty fell at the wrong time, and Kieran was able to, you know, but Kieran was massive for us in that game, and you know, it was a breath of fresh air for us, because he only got 8 or 9 minutes in the drawn, and all of a sudden he's straight back on the team, and you know, going from 7 points down in at halftime, 3 points down, you'd have taken that, and we knew it was game on in the second half.
We saw you coming on in the first half there, Mark, in the 20-minute mark for Shane Enright. Enright picked up a yellow card against Cillian O'Connor. He had the issues with the penalty as well. So it was a tough day at the office for Shane. But you're obviously coming out like a man possessed. You're already a bit annoyed that you were dropped for the match. And then before the second half even starts, you welcome Alan Freeman to the Gaelic Grounds, shall we say?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember it much, to be honest. He's a big lad. But he was
There's not much in it. Like we'll see it in the replay here. You pick up a yellow card, but I don't think there's much in it.
No, there isn't. And like a yellow card is fine. I was probably dicing with that really when you consider in hindsight that it was going into extra time, and so you have to be really mindful. The reason Sheehan was taken off was because he was on a yellow and possibly could have got a black. So I was possibly a bit foolish by me there, but it possibly set the tone as well, and we weren't to be messed with that day, and we were going to go on and try and win the game. There was a lot of stuff going on in that game,
especially at half time here.
Yeah, but like I remember that game. They had a fella coming in. I don't know who he was, but they had a fella coming in off the sideline giving water, and every time he came in, he had a verbal go at any of our players. And I remember the meeting beforehand. Anthony Maher, possibly the quietest player in the Kerry team, he said, if he comes in and says something to me, I'm going to grab him by the ears and pull him off the field. And I think towards the end of the match, he actually did.
We will get to that. We will get to that. Don't worry.
But, so, there was a lot going on. And I think, as we do get to the end, we'll see it kind of all boiled over a bit. Look at that again from the big fella. And
why wasn't Kieran Donaghy used more? I mean, we saw it in the first match and here in the replay, how, vital he was and how instrumental he was to Kerry's attack. So, like from an outsider, why do you think he wasn't utilised as much?
I suppose from Kerry's point of view, we now had players like we saw in the drawn match, Stephen O'Brien, Paul Ganey, James O'Donoghue, match winners, and players or teams were able to set up against Kieran, and maybe have players that you saw in the start of the drawn match. They had Shami O'Shea, so maybe it was to change up tack. But maybe bring him on, but straight away from the start of the second half, or the second game he was on.
And you have to be proud of this one, Marc.
Yeah, it was
some
nice.
Technique.
It was nice to get up and get a score, and it was like, I suppose at the time, Mayo in the drawn match, they were bombing on at us, and I said, if I'm going to get in, I'm going to make sure that I bomb on at them and get up the field and get a few scores. We saw Colin Boyle doing it in the drawn match, and there was no reason why we couldn't bomb on and do the same against Mayo.
Did you feel you had a point to prove as well to Éamonn Fitzmaurice and the management?
Definitely. I really wanted to make a difference and show that I should have been on. Very unfortunate for Brian Kelly there, because he jumped, and I think he jumped a small bit too early, and he was coming down as the ball was landing, and he didn't have the momentum with him. But again, Andy right at the right place at the right time. You see Bryan coming out here, and he's half coming down. I don't know who gets a hand to it, but great goal.
Yeah.
You talk about kind of how it ebbs and flows, but then here again, another penalty. I remember from watching it, and even watching back before this match, it was carnage. So just frantic. I suppose when you were there, Bryan, did it feel as chaotic as it looked from the TV or from the stands?
Oh, it is. I mean, I was sitting on the sideline there, like, and you're just kicking every ball, and you're just, you're nearly out of breath watching it, let alone, inside playing it, and you're only sitting down watching it. But, it just, I don't know, you're just there bursting to get on, and you're just out there kind of saying, please get me in quick. I want to add to this, and I want to give my part to it, and it's all you can try and do, really. But look, it's frantic, and you can just see that the players just give you absolutely everything. There was 70 minutes played the week before, and to go to extra time with this, every fellow was giving everything, and it was so important that you had a squad of players, and we were able to bring great players into the game, like Declan there. Now I'd see him, a fellow with two bad knees, and we were able to bring him into it. Rob Henley had a chance there, it seemed like I had the week before as well, and that look fell for us on our side this time round. But look, it was just one of those epic games. That's what it is. I recall I was actually standing up right behind that when he kicked it, and
do you think it was going over?
Do you know what? The minute he kicked it, I knew it wasn't. I just knew that the legs weren't in it, and I just knew it wasn't going over. But as I said, I knew it was in his locker to kick it out, because I've seen him kick before, and he has kicked some massive scores. But look, again, you see, we have to bring in like Jonathan Lyon, and I know Jonathan kicks an absolutely screamer of a score. I think this could possibly be it here, like, and it just goes to show that the squad and the players we had, and that's a fantastic score, and to bring a fella in off the bench to do that is massive.
Yeah, because we saw that at the end of full time there, 3-11. the first half of extra time, just 2 points were exchanged. So this is the second half of extra time. And Mark, I think you can claim the assist to that one as well, hand passing off to Jonathan Lyne. But as Bryan says, you know, you had a big panel. You had such a talented panel as well that you needed to rely on in replays, in extra time of replays.
Yeah, and I think in that game we had 24, if not 25, of the 26 players that played in the game, which was incredible when you think about it. So, and all these players, the likes of Pat Kilkenny, these fellas who came off the bench, great score by Gainey, the way he brought it inside with the dummy over the bar, fantastic score. And I think he was actually taken off, and he came back on again. And look, we spoke in the drawn match. Look at Jonathan Lyne there kicking a score, and like it's over and back. And Bryan spoke about the crowd; they're in on top of you. And like we had fellas there now who were making a huge difference. Pat Kilkenny, Jonathan Lyne, the Mikey Gainies, all these lads, and it made for a great kind of the team. The morale in the team was massive altogether. I think this is where I was on about where it spills over.
Yeah.
You know,
but that's again talking about the chaos, the frantic nature of it all. You know, probably the legs are going on both teams, but probably Mayo a bit more. You've outscored them 3 points to 0 in the second half. You're 3 points up. We're coming into the last seconds of extra time here, and I suppose I don't know how you talk through this one. Tempers just boil over a bit. You know, it's been 140 minutes, 160 minutes of football. And it's high energy anyway, to say the very least, Mark.
It is, but you know what? They were Mayo in that situation we're playing. We see your man coming on the and I think he was taking selfies inside McDonald's after he was in it was in Mayo's best interest not to be getting involved in that league.
Like that suited us down to the ground, that because it just killed momentum and it killed the game, and clock ticked on.
You know,
I don't know how Donaghy gets the yellow. I think he just picked out the big man. Whoever's the tallest, come here to me.
Yeah.
Do you notice that though when it's going on, the few fans that enter the pitch and stuff like that? Like, would you notice that when you're on the pitch?
Yeah, well, you know, I did at the time. I noticed it, but it wasn't something that you'd be thinking about now. But we lost the ball here now in a situation where we really needed to hold possession. And we gave Mayo another opportunity to kind of, and I think there was a chance of a goal here. I think Killian makes a mistake, all right, but
I think he's dragged down here in the end.
Yeah,
a tackle needed to be made again, possibly, I don't know, and possible black card, or might be a bit harsh. And again, similar to Lee Keegan in the first match, Killian does lash out, probably unnecessary, but again, it is a red card, but one of those that probably a bit harsh because it's not overly malicious, I suppose, Bryan.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? Whether it was black or red at that time, I don't think it was going to make much of a difference. I suppose the referee had to make a decision because he did strike the leg out. It did look bad. Where the Lee Keegan one for me didn't really look bad, but I think the game was won at that stage really. Although they did have a chance here, but again, we saw Rob Henley taking the free kick. Kieran Donaghy had a huge influence. We see Donaghy here again, like he had a massive influence on us that day, and the joy when we won that game, just incredible, great moment.
Rob was great. Like the Sheehan moment.
We talk about highlights, and you go through your career. For me, that was definitely one of the highlights of my career, winning that game. You saw the emotion for everyone, for parents, for players. Incredible.
That's lovely, Gary John and your mother down. That's lovely.
That sums it up. That's what it means. I suppose, what was the emotion after it, Bryan? Even looking back now in hindsight, was it just sheer joy, a bit of relief as well?
Yeah, a bit of everything. I just think when you go through games like that, just the relief to come out the right side of it. I just couldn't imagine for Mayo coming out on the wrong side of games like that. It must be just absolutely heartbreaking. But that's what it is. It's just it's all the effort, all the time you put into it, and especially when you have those big epic games like that, down to the wire. It's just a relief of it. And I suppose the other side of it is you're into an All-Ireland final. I think majority of games, you get to an All-Ireland final is where you want to get to it. There's such a relief to it, and I know people don't. It's a bit. I know it's safety concern, but just even getting the crowd onto the field after the game, and it just even added to the occasion again. Just the passion that was shown by them, and just every person really trying to lift you up onto their shoulders, and it was it all adds to it. And I know it's probably not the safest thing for it to happen, you know, with crowds like that coming onto the pitch. But again, it just fed into the whole two games. It fed into exactly. It just fed into it, you know. And I suppose, look, it is relief, but you know, it's just when you come through a game like that. I mean, if you won a game handy by 6, 7, 8, 9 points, there's nothing to it. But it's when the game goes down to the wire and it goes to extra time, you know, or goes to replay and then goes to the extra time. You know, it's relief. And you know, we had a similar experience in actually 2015 here in Kerry with the county championship, where we played Legion in extra time in the county championship, and we were 7 points down, came back, draw, went to extra time, we drew it, went to replay, extra time again, and you know, just relief after those games again. It's just massive, you know, and that's all it was. It's just pure emotion and ecstasy, I suppose, of getting to getting through it and getting to an All-Ireland final.
Certainly.
And the beauty about that game, Shane, was like that was if we had won the week previous, you'd have been waiting 4 weeks for an All-Ireland final, whereas that game was played on a Saturday night. Dublin were playing Donaghy the following day in Croke Park. We were 3 weeks out. We could sit back, watch the Dublin-Donaghy match, and Donaghy, you know, surprised Dublin on the day. But at least, you know, both teams for the final then had 3 weeks to prepare, so we felt we were on an even keel, even par. You know, it's the same run-in, which I think is the perfect run-in, 3 weeks, whereas 4 weeks is a bit much. But we were able to look forward after that. There was huge relief, and able to look forward after that for an All-Ireland final, which is a massive thing, and what a feeling to be able to look forward to something like that.
Certainly. My final question, gents, I suppose I'll direct it at the two of you. Marc first. How long did it take you to come down from that, even emotionally?
I suppose, you know, in Kerry, you're always talking to people about football, and you know, if you be going to the shop, wherever you're going, football, it's always the same. I think maybe the Tuesday night, it's a great thing to get back with the team on the Tuesday night, because the manager will ground you. Well done on what you did, but it's all about looking forward now and facing the next thing. So I'd imagine we were given a few days off, and then I think Tuesday night, Éamonn rallied the troops again, and it was about just focusing in on the final. But we did have a few days, you know, I think the Saturday and a few pints on the Sunday. And, you know, it was kind of back to business then on Monday, and then Tuesday night back to training and really focusing in on Donegal. And we had a team meeting on the Tuesday night. So that was it. You know, you do get the few days, which is great. And I think it's important you get the few days, because the players need to kind of socialise and kind of celebrate two fantastic games and getting over the line, which was fantastic. So I think Tuesday night we were brought back down to reality.
How important is that time, Bryan, that you can enjoy it before you refocus? It's
massive, you know, and I think that's, you're about team. I think people probably don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not required, but just to even get fellas together and have a few drinks together, it's just massive morale of the team. It's how, I suppose, the likes of, you know, the older fellas get to know the younger fellas a bit more, so that you get to have a bit of crack with them, you find out a bit more about them. Whereas, you know, other evenings you're coming to training individually in your own cars, and you're going home afterwards, and it's just great to be able to get out together. And you know, when you're out, you're talking about the game, you're talking about this incident, you're talking about that incident, and you're talking to fellas about the game, and you're hopping something off him, and he's hopping off you, and you know, it's great just to be able to get into fellas and sit down and have a chat about it, and then have the crack, obviously, and unwind and you know, enjoy the celebrations that go with it. But you know, that's great to do. But as Marc said, like, I mean, look, you do know there's no All-Ireland final coming down the road here, so it's, you enjoy it for the 1 or 2 days that you can. But you know, once you're back in the car heading to training on Tuesday evening, there's only one goal in mind, and that's to get yourself right for an All-Ireland final. And you know, I suppose, while there is a high of the game against in the semi-final win against Mayo, you know, that high probably kind of keeps going, because you know you have an All-Ireland final to look forward to. And even that in itself, I always found that fellas were nearly giddy around the place at training, because there is that bit of excitement of going to Croke Park, of going to an All-Ireland final. And you know, I think that just even added to the game, you know, and just the confidence we took from the winning the game was massive. And then I think just fellas said, right, Jesus, you know, if we could play the game on the following Saturday, we would have had, you know, and I think that was massive. I just think that replay just really set the platform for us, and the belief it gave us for the All-Ireland final.
Well, if that doesn't whet the appetite, I don't know what will. The 2014 saga, the semi-final saga, you know, a brilliant watch, and you can watch that on Air Sport. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for here. From myself, from Mark, and from Bryan, it's bye for now.